So, let me gather my thoughts. A few things are on my mind right now. Very recently, like yesterday, a bill was passed in Arkansas that the governor is yet to have final word on, but the bill is to bar anyone from transitioning before 18. Hormone blockers, HRT. If you were assigned male at birth, you have to develop that way until age 18. If you were assigned female at birth, you have to develop that way until age 18. Well, I'll say it's clear to me that detransition is not something that I really seek. In fact, when I was younger, as a teenager, it was already pretty clear to me that I had discomfort with my body and that I had a real desire to exhibit myself femininely. When I think of the amount of people that will suffer at the hands of this fate, because of ignorance, confusion, undue fear, and confirmation bias of cases such as, what's her name? Kira Bell, things like that. I understand that people detransition. I understand that it's happened at an alarming increase of frequency in the past 5 years or so. At the same time, if it's for people who need that care, the trans care, if it's for people who need that, their lives will greatly improve and greatly come to, an inner peace, an inner resolution. No, life isn't resolved by then, but at least that is. At least they can live out life in a way that is congruent to who they are. I can't live like this. The face that you see cannot exist without HRT. I can't do it. My body has a deficiency by my perspective, it's a deficiency. You can argue all you want. It produces hormones in a masculine pattern. Actually, a somewhat androgynous pattern, but my body's very sensitive to androgens as well, as I've realized. And as a result, I basically turn into a guy, and that, take a second to assume that this is genuinely me, right? What you see on camera right now. Imagine that having to live as a guy instead, because their body can't do anything about it other than to do so, to live as a guy. Don't you think I'd suffer a bit? That's what you're subjecting all these kids to. And you know what? A lot of this is even a catch-22 on the right, because they fear men in dresses, men claiming to be women, self-IDing as women, having to date women with obviously glaring masculine features. And they don't realize that so much of this comes from having to be socialized and endocrinely developed as a male instead of a female. That puberty disfigures you, okay? I'm sorry, but it does. Now, granted, there are interesting beauties that can come out of it. I mean, androgyny is a beautiful thing. And you know what? Some people, many trans people, they have somewhat masculine or feminine features from the start of their lives. And that will affect, and puberty can start very early on, and that will affect how their bodies develop, especially considering that externally applied hormones don't always perfectly apply to the body. So many things that the right can use, certainly to counter-argue me. But take it this way. You wouldn't have to deal with a man asking you out for a date if if that man could have just transitioned at 16 or 14 and not have to have been a man, you know, it'd be a lot easier. And by the way, most trans people that I've seen are a lot more reserved to even do that, because they understand how much they stand out, because their experiences in life show right on their face, right on their bodies, and completely contradict who they actually are as a person, you know, and the nebulous fact that they are female or male, in spite of their body saying that they are male or female. And the fact of the matter is, a lot of people don't understand that in this nebulousness, there must be room for people to live out their truth, as it's often described as nebulous as that phrase is. If your body is going to feminize and you're a whole man, as my dad's body somewhat did actually, because he had to go through treatment for prostate cancer, and developed breast tissue, you know, it, God, I don't even know if I should even talk about that, but anyway. It makes the person uncomfortable, okay? Like, you're so quick to empathize, all right, with a woman losing her curves and losing her breasts and losing her voice and all these things that happen at that woman's likely accord to allow them to happen. Even if they were influenced to do so, it was still out by their own hand and will that those things happened, right? Taking the pills, electing for the surgeries, etc., etc. You know. But you won't empathize with a woman who is fated to go through that unless she does something about it. And once that train starts rolling, it's really hard to do stuff about it, because your body discourages you from doing it, because you think, oh, I'm just going to keep developing like this, and also I already developed like this. How the hell am I going to be a woman at this point? It's too late. Screwed. You know? You think you're just this gigantic demon, you know, that just can't be who they are, and is like pathologically posed for that, for not being who they are, for not being sensual, for being ugly and disfigured, deep voiced, strongly jawed, really tall, really burly looking, lack of hips. The hips also, by the way, the hips fuse around age 20. I just missed and just made that mark when I started transition at age 20. So I can relate to that. Actually somewhat lost hip definition over the years, because, you know, once the puberty train starts rolling, it wants to go on, you know, anyway, you know. Yes, suppressive medicine, yes. But, you know, you don't want to have people suffer at the hands of their own bodies. It's a deficiency. And yes, it's also an identity. Sometimes it's more a deficiency than identity. Sometimes it's more identity than a deficiency. Sometimes it's both. Apologies for the stutter. You know, there is a need to relate to your own body and accept your own body and love your own body, regardless of how it manifests. There's also a need to allow yourself the opportunity to experience life in a way that makes sense. I remember someone telling me, 6 years ago, 7 years ago, something like that, at a soup kitchen I was working at. I was 17 years old. I mentioned that I wanted to transition. 17 years old. So I at this point, I kind of knew that I was going to do this. And I waited another 3 years. I wonder why that happened. Or another 2.5 years. He told me, why don't you just wear a dress and, enjoy that and, just be who you are. I've heard about people with like the surgery and the phantom penis comes out and all those things, which is, partly true, but at the end of the day, a vagina is there and that's kind of cool. And he's basically telling me that, I should just costume every while. And then when I go to sleep, man stares back still. Doesn't understand. He didn't understand that this is so... And there's a woman who often attended the soup kitchen who was trans. She was elderly and seemed like she had been off of hormones for a very long time. And that almost was the spur of the conversation, I think. But he doesn't understand that this is more than costuming. This is identity. This is a conception, understanding, and relation of who you are. And the body... The reality is the body is a useful term in affirming that. You want to look your best. And if your best, the best way you can look contradicts literally your sense of maleness or femaleness. Which, yes, I got confused even discussing this stuff because it's so fundamental. You stare at a man in the mirror that you see of yourself. And how do you discredit it? How do you say, that's not me? 10 years prior, maybe there was no man, there was just a child. And that child could have developed either way. I had a much less defined face. I had a much less defined head when I was young. Here, I'll show you a picture. Just a second. Hold on. Those paintings are fake. Look. Here. It's me. And here. Me. And there's one more down here. I think. Oh, there's even me here. Age 15. Then this one I think was the one I wanted to show you. Yeah. That's me sitting there. I really hope that showed in the camera. I'm gonna make sure. There we go. Yeah. That right there is me. Yeah. And honestly, when I look at that one, I see a girl. Like, it makes sense. And instead, this isn't too bad here. Not too bad. I can see things are somewhat changed by then. And then, it's me at age 17, 18. Yeah. And, well, I guess in a way, oh, that's me, 2003, up there. That's me. Yeah. I guess what I'm trying to say with that is you're allowing these people to undergo a path that they would not have had to go through, that will permanently change them and create inner conflict for the rest of their lives. I guess in a way that inner conflict does somewhat come with the program, but I don't think it does as much if you've transitioned at such a young age, because the body makes sense, you know? And all this, by the way, makes me very clear in knowing that I won't detransition. Why do you think I even considered it? Because I didn't want to have to fight. My body is a battlefield as a trans woman, as a trans woman, as a trans person. It's constantly saying one thing, and then you have to constantly assert another thing, and you have to use medicine in order to maintain the contradiction. How to sell the contradiction. I don't know. Just reminded me of that. But yeah, you have to be strong in this way. You have to be perseverant, clear in what you want. Because everything in the world, down to your very own body, is going to discredit you in some way as a trans person. And yet, somehow, the beauty and magic of it is you're right. It's just you have to realize it. And if you wait too long, it becomes harder to realize it. But you still can. You still can. I mean, I know trans women who are 50, 60 plus who have transitioned, and they look great. A high profile version of that, of course, is Caitlyn Jenner. She looks stunning. She could have modeled if she was young. She probably gets some model now on it. The Vanity Fair cover. There you go. You get me? There's a lot of strife here. And a lot of people don't seem to understand that. They think it's just, fun colors and stuff. No, it's a soul journey. It's endless. It's hard. And it's rewarding in ways unimaginable. Because you really get to know you, and you really get to know what it means to be anyone. Like, once again, imagine if you had to be, like, say, the bearded, chiseled lady who's 6'2" and brawny and deep-voiced and has a penis. That's what it feels like. Plus the effects of testosterone doing something to the way you process the world. Process yourself mentally as well as physically. You're gone. Imagine if you have to be the man with double D breasts and a soprano voice at age 25 and, 5'3" and with childbearing hips and bleeds every month. You just want to end it. Sorry to say. A lot of kids feel like that because they're not supported and because they're dealing with that on top of it. And oftentimes not even just being not supported, they're being berated and belittled for it. What you're doing now in Arkansas is insisting that they go through more of that until age 18. It's like a sentencing for no crime other than ostensibly what nature has done to us, But why should we fight that? It's a journey that is a real gift, Trans healthcare is a real gift. And to take that away from children because you can't take it away from adults is wrong. Trying to protect them when they're quite aware of what they're going through. As far as the detransition issue, look, one of my friends who detransitioned started a low dose of testosterone, and I'm what's the word? Confused about it. I don't know. But they still identify as a lesbian, so, I feel like if you're gonna toy around with gender, that should be open to you. Take note of why you might be doing this, transitioning or detransitioning. Make sure that it's something that'll bring plenitude to your life, whichever choice you make. And, yeah, I mean, if you can live biologically as, without medical aid, as a functional and happy person that, feels coherent in their body, then do it. Yeah. But to abuse and reduce yourself in order to do that instead of to live authentically, in a way that does affirm you, well, are you on your side? It's a hard gambit. Yes. Detransitioners deserve respect and sympathy, and especially the ones who transitioned to male and then detransitioned to female because of I don't know, they bought into some feminist lie, I guess, that like they have to be men in order to protect themselves or whatnot, that they feel inferior and just unable to live fruitfully as the dainty flowers that they are, because that's how they see themselves as and nothing more. Trying to protect themselves or trying to affirm their androgynous personalities or whatnot. Insecurity in the end. Insecurity about how others will treat them, how they'll be seen, what opportunities they'll have as a person, as a sexual being. You have to really make amends with that. You have to really figure that out for yourself, because if you're going to live in this flux and that's why, then maybe you're non-binary, honestly. But also maybe you have to really accept yourself, as we all have to do. Even trans people have to accept that they're male or female, regardless of what their identity insists they are, what they feel and at heart they are. They still have to accept that their body works differently. I can't bear a child. I don't bleed every month. My body will develop a certain way that causes this jaw, that causes this sultry voice, etc., that causes my hips to be a bit tight. You have to accept that. Because any cis woman would have to accept that too. So, I appreciate detransitioners for, giving us trans people and giving us trans people perspective and on like, the fact that you can accept yourself and that is important to do, and you can accept yourself in such a way that like you don't have to change yourself so dramatically in order to be yourself. And I applaud them for informing cis people and trans people alike of, the, more complex, more macabre side of transitioning that can go wrong, that can leave, emotional and, figuratively physical scars on a person. It isn't always thought out well. It isn't always helpful. It usually is thought out well, honestly. I don't think it very seldom is not thought out well. I think usually what happens is if someone detransitions, it's just a mistake. It's a misguidedness. It's, they're trying to help themselves and, and maybe they were trans, and then they just found this isn't for me. Because in the end, transitioning is a choice. And some people choose to live differently, to manage who they are inside, Doesn't always have to be that you change your physical sex in order to live happily, obviously. So, but it is a choice available, Even though I won't be able to bear a child and all that stuff, at least, this alone is so much. My countenance, my face, my body, short of reproduction, yes. And you know what? Even then, it's kind of cool to have a wang as a girl, Damn the stutter, but it's kind of cool. It's kind of a sexual edge, I guess. So now I'm rambling about dick. So I'm going to stop the video and thank you. Like, share, comment, subscribe. Instagram, Shy Extroversion. Jillian Omatoso. Oh, I guess I didn't clarify about the detransitioner. She's assigned female at birth, and she transitioned to male years ago and then detransitioned. And now she's on a low dose of tea, so I don't know where her state of mind about things is, but she talked about it on her channel, so yeah. Oh, and lastly, the occasion of this video is also important because today is Trans Day of Visibility, and visibility matters. Before Laverne Cox, there was nowhere near the amount of representation that we have now. And most people thought that trans people were synonymous with drag queens. And most trans people, or at least a plurality of them, most would not transition at least until like age 25, probably, or even 30, because they just lived in this constant daily state of confusion, And visibility allows for trans people to explain themselves and to educate and to communicate to those who are trans without even words that they exist, that there's something to relate to in your experience, that you're not alone. And I'm glad to be part of trans visibility by existing and telling my story, telling my thoughts, showing my color of the trans experience. Yeah. Happy TDOV. Thanks. Bye. Who are you to me? Standing there. Just who could you be? Soulless bear. Hiding under skin. Beating like a tin. Could you be my life? Or be my care? Won't you come on over? And let me say to you that you have worth, not through words, but pure connection in this world. Also, I mentioned SRS earlier. I mean, anything like a like a vaginoplasty or a hysterectomy, for FTMs, that puts the whole struggle to an end to an extent, because there's no means to go through that wrong puberty anymore. So it is kind of like a resolution that way. It's not just aesthetical, just saying.